When we hear of these mind-boggling cases of corruption in Nigeria, complete with figures, a lot of people will be wondering, how could this happen if there are accountants who are usually gatekeepers? We've heard about accountants. We've also heard about auditors that are essentially in the same family as a kind of accountant. And so when you hear this monumental figure of stealing of billions of naira in public institutions, you begin to wonder, how could that happen when there are accountants in the place? You can't just, I was thinking, leapfrog over an accounting hurdle and have your way. But in Nigeria, we must have devised a way to do so. How is that?
Well, thank you very much. Actually, I've always been of the opinion that for any fraud to succeed, there's a level of connivance that is needed for the accountant to be part of it. Let me put it this way. Okay. If a school principal wants to embezzle money, he must have a good working relationship with his boss. If he doesn't, he'll be in trouble. It
will be very, very difficult.
He'll be in trouble.
If not impossible.
But you see, the thing there is, like we have just said, the accounting function is essentially a service function, staff function. It's a reporting function. It's a stewardship function. In other words, someone has your assets and he has been using it for your benefit, presumably. It's left to the accountant to report. Is he doing it well or not? A lot depends on the report of the accountant, but it can be ignored. You see, the most potent tool that the accountant has is his report. The reporting function is a key factor in influencing the direction of the enterprise. But he can report and it can be ignored.
I was going to ask that when he has done his report, what if it is simply put under,
exactly,
just so effectively ignoring it?
What we usually say is, in that case, is make sure it's well documented. One day somebody will dig it up. There was a case where we were talking about an internal auditor who raised reports that embarrassed the chief executive, and he consigned him to the store, just dumped him in the store where nobody would hear of him. But much later, a new board was raised. I don't know how the board chairman stumbled on the report of the auditor and brought it to the board meeting. The man who prepared this report, is he still in this organization? They said, yes, bring him up. That was how the report was exhumed and acted upon. You see, the important thing in a record is that it's a permanent record.
Okay.
Keep it there.
Okay.
It may or may not be used. You see, the accountant cannot perform a miracle. You cannot change the grain of the Nigerian. That's why I said there's a character problem too. You will do your bit.
Oh dear.
You will do your bit.
You can't change the DNA of a Nigerian.
Yes, you can't.
The DNA is already there. Oh dear. Oh dear.
But we have our own duty to do, and we must do it. And we don't make any excuses for that. We hold our members responsible to make sure that they do what they ought to do. Prepare your reports in good style. Document them. Send them to those who, ought to use them to act. If they don't act, the fault is not on you.
Yeah.
But you have raised the necessary report.
Now, what can the accounting profession or accountants do? Because our caption is trying to curb corruption and waste with the accounting function. And as we've now heard, it's not always that the accountant is the chief executive officer. So he still has someone to work up to. I caught a link there that where the laws against money laundering are tight, a lot less is possible. So what, beyond what Prof has just said, that prepare your report, keep it, it might or might not be used. Now, I imagine people who are bad guys, that will be good news to them. That, look, so far you want to do this, just make sure that, the man is not too senior or whatever. I don't know. I'm just looking at what can the accounting professional do, because he doesn't have law on his side. If I'm not wrong, if I am, please don't hesitate to point me to point it out. He doesn't have law on his side where I have spoken, I have written my report, and you can't go beyond this until this approach is addressed. The accountant doesn't have that power, I imagine.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the accountant cannot go beyond that. But there are things that he can also do. Instead of waiting also for when somebody will discover it later, I mentioned the external audit function earlier.
Okay.
The truth is that the way external auditors should work when they come into an organization, after, for instance, meeting with the chief executive that, okay, we're here for this assignment, the next port of call should be the internal auditor.
Okay.
Now, where the internal auditor, for instance, or maybe the accountant now, in this case, is having a running battle with his chief executive, the auditors too will also have consultation with the accountant. And he can use that opportunity to let the auditors know about the red flags that they can look into, because those are the people that can bring the chief executive to book. And so he needs to explore that particular angle as well.
That is by the processes that they shall
exactly,
engage.
Yes.
You know.
Now, of course, you know that there's a Whistleblowing Act too that was probably enacted some times back. I don't know how much people make use of those acts. You know, in Nigeria, the issue with us is there are laws, but those laws are really not implemented. And even where they're implemented...
Not all the time.
Not all the time. And even where they're implemented, there seems to be no zeal around it. So the thing the accountant can do, because he has somebody that he's working under, because in this case, he's not the chief executive, is to look for a third party to be able to make sure that he covers his track. You keep your own record. You have relationship with the external auditor. If you have opportunity with the whistleblowing process in place, you make use of it. So
the moral character of the headship of the company also comes into, it also plays into this. Because if the headship wishes to frustrate the accountant, wishes to frustrate the internal auditor, I didn't know before that he can go right ahead and do so. Unfortunately, this is where the vibe I'm getting.
Actually, the reports of the auditor can eventually bring him down.
If it is discovered.
At some point.
Like this accidental way.
That's why we are talking about strong governance structure.
Okay.
There must be a system for holding the chief executive accountable. He cannot be a law unto himself. We've always asked the question, who guards the guards? There are people who are put there to oversee, to superintend over the performance of the system. Who guards them? So the thing there is that these reports are sure tools that can be brought against them. How does EFCC operate? EFCC depends on how honestly and sincerely the man at the helm of affairs wants to address the issues raised.
Okay.
If he's conscientiously pursuing them, the work of the accountant and the auditor will be a great help.
Okay.
But if not interested, there's nothing you can do. But the work of the auditor will help him if he wants to act.
You know, this is...
When you hear that somebody has been brought to book for embezzling how many billions, how do you get that information?